Okay, so my name is Amelia Sutton. I am the Library Services Platform Administrator at UMass Amherst, which is a part of the Five Colleges Consortium. And I'm also the product owner for the Users app. And I'm going to be giving a quick introduction to this presentation, and then Maura and Christine are going to take it away with some more details. So I'm going to start off with a general introduction to the Users app. And I mostly want to focus on this idea of users as two different things or users fit two different roles in Folio. So in our previous ILS, Olive, there were patron user records and there were staff user records that could sign in to Olive and work in the backend. In Folio, those records are the same. So there's a single user record for a staff member who also can borrow items. So connected to a user record, we have all of these other kinds of records across Folio. Users was the first app that was created in the project because we needed a way to log in and manage access. And so users connect to almost every other part of the system. Users on the staff side have permissions, service points, acquisitions units. They can be given access to a knowledge base. And then on the other side, there are fees and fines, loans, requests, all of the things that your patrons will do to conduct regular business in your ILS. And so our user records connect to all of these things. And the actual data that is part of the core user record is fairly limited. There's some personal information with addresses and things like that. And then the majority of the data is connected in these separate records where each user with permissions assigned will have a permissions user record that references the user record, and that's how Folio connects those two things. Yeah, so that's my general overview. And I will pass it off to Maura.
All right. Hello, everyone. For those of you who were not here at the previous session, my name is Maura. I work at the University of Chicago Library, and I have been the users wrangler pretty much since I began working there. Then we can go through. So we're going to have a guided tour of what a user record looks like. Here we are. So I created some fake users on Snapshot. Whenever I need to test something, I create a fake user. And all of those fake users are characters from the Mary Tyler Moore Show, if you remember that. So essentially, here we are. You do a search here. You can search for their name. You can search for their user ID, which is what this is. You can search for, if you pull down this drop-down menu, you can search by their barcode. You can also filter by their status and by their patron group and by any tags that might be added to the user record. So you can check, if you have a distressingly common name that you're looking for, you can try and narrow that list of users down until you can get the one you're looking for probably on the screen. Next. Now, when this comes up, I'm gonna, this is the only record that corresponds or has this in its within the username. And so it automatically pops up the user record itself. And, you know, we have these various accordions. And these accordions will tell us about, you know, essentially what you need to know about a user. We'll need to know sort of their contact info, we need to know how many loans they have out, et cetera. So we'll go through, you can see here that Mary Richards is in the staff group. You can tell that she's active. And you can see her expiration date. That's sort of the things that pop up when I get a question about someone who has just been rehired after a summer off. A student worker, chances are, it can be resolved just by checking this and see if they're active or inactive. You just call up the record and see. So this is the first accordion, user information. The patron blocks will have everything that you need to know about that user's record, every block that's been put there, every bit of information that pops up. They, you know, there's a block on their account, et cetera. Is that a raised hand?
Yeah,
Yes.
a shy question about that. I didn't understand the status. Is this a result of an expiration date? So it's an automatism. If the expiration date is reached, then the status gets inactive, or can I also act there and set a person to inactive?
Yes, you can set a person to inactive, so you don't have to rely on the expiration date. A thing that will happen is that the expiration date itself will truncate to today. So if you mark that person inactive, they will be inactive as of that day.
Mm-hmm.
So you can do both, when we edit the records.
Mm-hmm.
But this is, you know, if a patron can't borrow for some reason, this is where they go, or this is where we'll find the information. Extended information. These are things that, we don't necessarily need to know. You know, if a student worker is having trouble, you know, circulating items, it is not because of their birth date. Yeah.
Now a question, sorry, but we really use the birthday for the use protection. There are, for instance, movies are allowed to see from a different age. We have to protect this, and we have to follow the rules there. Now we have this, we have a category that is when an item will be checked out. And if it's in this category, then our system checks the birthday of the person who wants to lend it. And that's why we need the birthday. That's essential thing.
Right.
It's necessary.
Yeah, in our case, a birthday is something that, people who want to commit identity theft, in the US, a birthday is a really good tool. So we keep it a little bit behind the scenes, but that data can be, I believe, rolled into a patron type or patron group. And then, you know, you'd be able to.
But this is a moving thing, because then the people reach the age where they are now, and then I have to do something that I don't want to do. Put them in another.
Yeah, right. I believe that is something to be addressed through circles. That's kind of out of my scope, I'm afraid.
I will say that circles currently do not have a way to check birth date on users. So at the moment, there is no way to connect that to your circulation rules in Folio.
Could you use an API to identify
Sure. Yeah,
when she would need to switch someone from a children's teacher?
You mean like an automated API call that would get everybody whose birthday is today and that is, you know,
through.
right, someone whose birthday is from a particular year so that they moved into a. Yeah.
I think that could be possible.
Yeah. Okay, let's move on.
Oh, sorry. There you go.
So here's contact information. When you create a user by hand, I use the actual bare bones because I don't feel like spending my day doing this. So I will not put in a phone number or a mobile phone number for Mary Richards. Instead, I will use my own email address, and the preferred contact is email by default. I believe we have it fixed. We used to have a bug where it didn't matter which one you preferred. It would require an email address, and not care about the phone or mobile. That has been fixed. So this is, if you have an email address, but you have an official email address, like in our case, a campus address, but you will respond more quickly to an address that's a more personal address, then you can have your preferred email communication and put your preferred email address in there. Let's go to custom fields. Okay. For this user record, because it was on snapshot, I didn't set any custom fields, but you can create fields for your users. And they can answer yes, no, it can be part of the drop-down list. You can create these custom fields, and those fields are listed here along with their values. Those proxy forward.
And I can also add,
Yeah.
just if that's okay.
Yeah.
So with custom fields, like you were saying, there are several types. And currently, you can, when you add a custom field, if it is a drop-down, a single select from a radio button set, a multi-select where you can select multiple options, or true, or a Boolean value of true or false. All of those will appear as additional filter options on the side when searching for users.
Thank you. These are proxy and sponsor relationships. If Mary Richards is working for a professor named Grant, then she would be able to borrow books on his behalf. If she is a sponsor of a student worker, then that student worker can borrow books on her behalf or on their own behalf. And this lists those relationships. Fees and fines, basically, it's exactly what it says it is. These are open, closed, and all. And these are each links. They can link to that patron's loan record or their fees and fines record, and then you can get a sense of the history of that fee and or fine. Loans is much the same. Just open and closed loans, and it will tell you, and if you click on either one of those, you'll be able to see whether or not, the book they say they returned is still up. And then requests. Again, these things just put us in, these are books they've requested, whether or not they've gotten them. And you get a history. And you can create a request from here. So that if a patron, you're dealing with a user at your desk, you can go ahead and you can go ahead and make the request for them here, if that's what you want. It depends on how much of a headache you think it is and whether you can pass that headache on to the patron. So you'll come to user permissions, which is really the staff part. I've given Mary no permissions, but when we edit the record, we'd be able to give her permissions. Service points, again, those are necessary if you're going to circulate an item. And so a user record does need a service point, if they're gonna be staffed, yeah.
I have a question about the permissions.
Yeah.
I get why staff has user permissions, but why would the patron have any permission? They don't really log into Folio.
Right, and so they get no permissions.
Okay.
If Mary Richards does not work for the library, but instead, works elsewhere on the campus or is just a patron, then there would be no user permissions and no service points. And then notes is a link to a thing all its own. And you can add a note, you can edit a note, you can delete a note, and it's just a thing that goes on the patron record. I think I go through.
One question about the
Yeah.
loans and the requests,
Mhm.
and that, there was loans that are closed. Can I decide as the library user, that the library don't have any history on me? So can I switch that off, the closed loans, that there's no history?
Probably.
Yeah, so you can set up your system to anonymize loans once they're closed. And I believe once a loan has been anonymized, it will no longer show up under this list of closed loans.
So they are still there as a loan for statistics, or?
Yeah.
Yeah, but not related to a,
Not connected.
Mhm.
to a person,
Right,
Yeah.
thank you.
yes. All right, and I believe, yes, we're getting into dependencies. These are, essentially things in a user record that are connected to other parts of the folio. And so we have three users, Aaron Burr, Alexander Hamilton, and George Washington. And Washington is faculty and the other two are graduate students. Let's go to the next bit here. Now, Alexander Hamilton is a proxy borrower for George Washington. And you can add a sponsor or a proxy to the record. So I opened Alexander Hamilton, and I added George Washington as a sponsor. And the next one, Aaron Burr, he does not have a proxy sponsor relationship with George Washington. So the next, and he has items checked out. So if you're going to delete a user, at the University of Chicago, we almost never do. But if you delete a user, the user's app will check for dependencies. So they will check for proxy borrowers, they will check for sponsors, and they will check for loans out, fees, anything that's still owed. It will check for those things. So if we, so if we try to delete Aaron Burr, we can't because he has two open loans. So we would have to return the two items he had out in order for this user record to be deleted. Next, Alexander Hamilton also can't be deleted because he has an unexpired proxy. So since he is a proxy borrower for someone, that relationship would have to be removed in order for us to be able to delete this record. Next, and the same is true of George Washington, who has a dependency. He has one unexpired proxy. And so so we have to, again, remove that before you can delete that user record. Right, so, yes.
Can you automatically delete users, like, for GDPR reasons, for example, you have to delete the user after a year of being inactive, and we will write a script for that, but it'd be nice if
It's, I would say that this is for, you know, these dependencies are things that are still sort of like still relationships with the library. So, here it requires that, you know, that we delete the user. And I often use that delete button just to check for dependencies on user. But I think that it was created so that you would know what information you're losing when you delete a user. It's probably fine. You can probably create an API and delete a bunch of users. But I'll ask the developer of that particular function. Because he was very much a front end developer, and so I'll see if we need something for the back end of work.
And there is no way to set it up to automatically delete users. So you would need to either be doing that with the script using the APIs or manually.
All right. And so now we're on to the settings part of the user's app, and Christine will guide you through there.
Hi, I'm Christine Tobias. I'm the coordinator for public services at the Michigan State University Libraries. I'm also the documentarian for the users app, the bulk edit and list apps, and RA, resource access. There may be something else, I don't know. I do a lot of documentation, so today I'm just gonna give you a little whirlwind tour of how the settings, users, or the users part of the settings app works for you. So as has been mentioned, users who are staff and need to perform their library work in Folio will have permissions assigned to them, and I'm gonna show you how to do that. And also, if you're just starting to implement your Folio tenant, settings users is going to be the area where you can create and customize your fields in your user records. And like I said, you're gonna create permission sets and manage user permissions. So to get to the settings users, you just go to the settings app and then you'll select users. And then you see on the right, there's 3 sections. So the general section is the setting, you can create the fields for your user records, including setting up your permission sets and your permissions. We're not going to talk too much about the fee, fine, or patron blocks area because those are resource access areas, but so those will be found in the settings users as well. So like I said, this is going to be a quick tour, but I need to make a plug for the documentation, Folio docs, docs.folio.org. So while I have these screenshots here, I also have the URL for the documentation down below, so you can refer to that in the future. Okay, next slide. So what are permission sets? You know, we talked about, you know, people have to have permission, users have to have permissions. Well, what are they? A permission set is basically a permission that consists of one or more sub-permissions. So a lot of times when we're Folio people are talking together about permissions, we just call them permissions. So if you hear permission sets, we're talking about permissions. It can get kind of violated if you're like, permission set. So anyway, so the permission sets can be created in the Folio system by a developer, or you can create them at your library in the settings users app. Permissions are role based. So remember we said that staff your library staff who have to do work, their library work in Folio. Many times these permissions are going to be role-based. The permissions define what that user can do in a specific Folio app. If they don't have a permission to do something, they're not going to be able to access that app in Folio. And then real quick here, permission names generally follow one or two formats, the app name, what the user can do, or settings, area of settings, what they can do. Okay. So, in settings users, you're going to create your permission sets. Again, the, permission sets are in the general section once you're in the settings users app, listed, there in the users pane. And then, you can see which permission sets you already have created in that, same window. If you want to create a new one, you're going to click on that new button up in the upper right-hand corner. And then a modal will open, the new permission set modal. You have to give your permission set a unique name, and you can provide a description. And then to add the sub-permissions, you're going to click this Add Permission button. And that's all I can say about that one. Okay. So, there are two ways to assign permissions to a permission set. The first way is we select the permission in the select permissions modal. We can search and filter by permissions if we know they already exist, or by assignment status. So to add a permission to a permission set, you simply check the box or boxes next to the permission name, and it assigns it to your new permission set. So that's one way. And then the second way is you can go to edit a permission set. Here in the upper right corner, I'm editing my WOLFcon UM6 session permission set. So in the edit modal, you can edit your permission set name. You can edit the description field, and you can view permissions assigned to that permission set or assign unassigned permissions to from the permission set by opening this assign permissions accordion. And I have to admit, I omitted something, or I made an error here. I said, but you cannot assign or unassign users to a permission set. That I need clarification. You cannot do that in the assigned permissions accordion. So, in the assigned permissions accordion, you can view and you can assign and unassign permissions. Okay. So we have three ways that we can assign or unassigned permissions to users. So the first way is we go to the permission set. Again, we're at the WOLFcon one. Go to the edit button in the upper right corner. We're going to make changes. So in the assigned permissions accordion, you can open that up and you can view a list of permissions that are already assigned to the permission set. And then open the accordion to view the list of users that have that permission assigned to them already. And then you can quickly edit using that assign, unassigned button that's in the assigned users accordion. And add, assign, or remove, unassign a user to or from that permission set. That's one way. Slide. Okay. You can also assign or unassign using the select user modal, and this is also in settings users. You simply type in the name or keyword or unique ID, no, username. You can filter by status. You can filter by patron group. I haven't shown that here, but you can also filter by, user assignment status. And then in the select user pane, the user search results, you can simply check the box or boxes next to the users to assign them to that permission set. Okay, and then the third way is actually in the users app. So if you have, permissions to edit users, you'll go to the users app. And in that, user permissions accordion that Maura showed you earlier, you can see what permissions that user has been assigned. And you can either add a permission by clicking on this button here to assign a permission to the user, or you can click unassign all permissions to just wipe them all out in one click, all their permissions. If you just need to delete a single permission, you can do that too by clicking on the X that appears next to that permission on the right-hand side there. I think that is it for me. And you can hear more at tomorrow's session about how we manage user permissions. I think you and I and then Aaron Weller will be joining us virtually. Yeah, so we're ready for questions if you have any or comments or.
And if anyone would like, we can also pull up Snapshot and demonstrate things directly if anyone is interested in seeing things in action too.
Yeah, snapshot.
But I think you had a.
Yes, it's the emails, you have to have an email for a user.
So the field is required, but it's not validated. So you can, if you don't want to have email addresses on user records, you can put a dummy address in there that isn't an actual email address.
Also, can you just put plain text? So also sometimes says no email address could not. Then you can choose the version of that. Like,
So can you repeat that question and answer for
Yeah, I've been typing them.
the, oh, awesome, yeah. Anything else?
I can just add a comment to the question earlier about removing closed loans. Just so you know, you can't anonymize requests yet. They will always stay under.
No. Yeah. Unless, of course, somebody puts in a request for their developers, they're not just behind it. Then that might be possible. Any other questions or comments? Yeah.
Question about the custom field for your section. Do you have any examples? Just out of curiosity, any examples of?
Yeah, let's call it a snapshot.
I was thinking her birth date situation could be a custom field.
Right,
Maybe.
right.
So those would also, custom fields are also not, referenced by the circles, so you still wouldn't,
Right,
wouldn't allow circles to look at that.
but you can use an API on a custom field to draw information from a custom field.
Yes, but it wouldn't affect the circles at all.
Right.
So I'm just in users custom fields now, and I went to add a new one. So we can give this field a name. And actually, before we do that, so these are the types of fields that you can have. So checkbox is just a Boolean value, true or false. And on each of the fields, there will be a field label and a help text. And then you can also hide that custom field if you are no longer using it. But so
So,
We have checkboxes. There's also a date picker. This will allow you to select a date using the normal date picker interface on the user record. So if I create some field.
so let's take a custom field, let's make a custom field. And we'll call it, you know, continuing studies. And this will be someone who goes to night sessions or things like that are not necessarily for credit. But, you know, you're going to then, you know, you can have, you know, a date picker that shows like how long you expect them to be there, and you can,
We'll save that. And then if you go over to the user's app. For custom fields, you can see the field shows up here, but there's no value because we just created it. But on the edit screen, custom fields, you can see this date picker option or a menu that comes up and you can select the date you want. You can also just type it in. And if you save and close, no.
welcome to
Okay.
Snapshot.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And while we figure that out, I'm just gonna mention that you might have seen a grayed out spot for your profile picture. It is possible to include pictures of patrons on the user screen. They can see, they can see the face of the user. Just in case it doesn't match. If you don't wanna have it, you can turn it off.
We also have
This might be a
titles.
snapshot issue.
Yeah, titles, like Dr. Kinsler. Academic text, yeah.
Here, I'm just gonna create a new user.
Basically is, you know, the custom fields were developed for, things that we needed to keep, you know, they need to keep about your users that was not part of the original set. And that way we, you know, we kind of sidestepped this is great, but we need this. And one place needs it and one does not. So we can set around it.
I think something is broken in Snapshot, so I'm going to Podcast. And actually, Podcast will be able to see lots of custom fields that are already created because there's a ton of data in here. We will have to go back and forth as often. Additional information for. So this is another thing, the custom fields accordion. The name of that accordion can be configured in settings. So let's go over here. And this is snapshot, so we won't see this, but you can set the accordion title. I believe there's still a bug where changing the accordion title for custom fields being users also changes the title of that field in the orders app, which also uses custom fields. But I believe that is being worked on. That did not continue to be an issue for too much longer. I hope so. But so you can see here, we go into the edit. There are many types of custom fields here. This is a single select dropdown. So when you're in settings, you can add as many options as you want. And the options are free text, but a user can only select one of them. These larger boxes are the text field type, or actually, one of them is the text box and one is text field. I don't remember which. Let's see.
Larger ones, I believe, are sort of a text field.
Okay, yeah, so text area versus text field.
Right. And HTML is new and exciting.
Yeah, so I believe that the area is the larger box and the text field is the smaller box, but they are both a free text string field. We have the checkbox, which I already talked about, is a Boolean value. Multi-selects are configured similarly to the single select, except multiple options can be added to a single user. So for this language field, we could select English, French, and German, or none of them. There are also defaults, so you can set whether or not a user has whichever of these selections by default on their record. Let's see. And there's also something we haven't talked about, this required option. We'll make it so that if the field is not provided when you try to save the user, you'll get that same warning that you get when you try to save the user without an email address or without a last name. And then the radio button set is very similar to the single select, except for the way that it displays, it has this radio button select on. Oh, let me go back to the users app. We go in here. The radio button select looks like this. And we can see this language drop down and add languages to the user. Is there anything else that you wanted to see about custom fields? Anything else that anyone would like us to take a look at? We've still got another 15 minutes. If there's anything else.
If something occurs to you now, or it occurs to you later, you can always contact one of the three of us.
Yep.
We're gonna be around for the conference, and we're available through the user management SIG meetings as well. So you can get us on the Slack channel, user management, and you can get us in the SIG meetings if that is what you would like to do. So yeah. We're not gonna sit here and wait until, we're not gonna make you sit there.
Yeah, so if there are no more questions.
But if there's nothing
we'll
else,
be done.
if there's nothing else that comes to mind, we can say thank you very much.